In my last video, I was out here with the Haiboxing Surge X03, getting some baseline run times using the stock Li-ion batteries that come with the boat. They provide a little over 8 minutes. The boat's been averaging about 8 minutes 20 seconds to 8 minutes 30 seconds running these Li-ion batteries. They're 2S and 800 milliamp hours. I recently got this Liperior battery sold by rcbattery.com. It certainly doesn't break the bank at $7.50. It's an 850 milliamp hour 2S LIPO. So instead of Li-ion, I'm gonna run LIPO in it. And we're gonna see how much longer the runtime is, if any, see if we see any increased performance, perhaps an increase in top speed. And then I'm gonna run it through a bunch of tests on my charger to see the voltage distribution. Is it running higher voltages for longer periods of time, thus increasing in performance? All the usual testing I do. So this video is going to piggyback on the last one and continue where it left off. Not going to waste any more time. Go ahead and get the Haiboxing Surge X03 in the water, and today I'll be doing the run times. I apologize for all the noise here. There's a construction site behind me, and I did forget my stopwatch. So what I'm going to do is look at the time on the video camera. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's at 30 seconds on the timer now. This is the Liperior 2S35C LIPO running in a boat, and I'm just going to run full throttle the whole time. It's a little smoother today than the last time I was out here, so we'll see if that has any effect on the length of runtime. But again, last time it was running about 8 minutes 20 seconds to 8 minutes 30 seconds. Now this is an additional 50 milliamp hours in this boat today, so it should run, everything else being equal, 30 seconds longer. So we'll take that into consideration. So if this boat runs 9 minutes or more, it's pretty impressive. But I think what the main difference is going to be is it's going to run stronger for a longer period of time. All right, started beeping at about 7 minutes 40 seconds, and it just shut down at 7 minutes 50 seconds. That's it. And I think I'm dead in the water. Usually I get a little extra time where I can drive it back in. Maybe it's moving. All right, it's moving slowly. Thank goodness, because the water's gonna be cold and it's muddy out there. Come on, boat, you're almost in. All right, we made it in. So the runtime was actually no longer or even a little shorter than before. I wasn't expecting that, but it is what it is. And it may well have been faster there, so I'm gonna check that out on another run video. Now I'm gonna go ahead and see what the final voltage is in this battery. It's the Liperior in here. And the final voltage. All right, next up, I have one of the Li-ion batteries that came with the boat. Again, last time out here, they were running about 8 minutes 20 to 8 minutes 30 seconds. Today the water's a little calmer, so we'll see if that changes the run time. The Liperior LIPO battery just ran about 7 minutes and 50 seconds before it died. What was interesting is that these lithium-ion batteries, they would start beeping, which is the low voltage warning, you know, a minute or two before the batteries would die. We'll look at this recording now and see exactly what time it is they start beeping versus when they die. But the Liperior died very quickly once it hit that low voltage. So the last little bit of voltage just dumps out of it. And I think what we're gonna find, and what I've been seeing as I charge the batteries on my charger, is that the Liperior has a lot of voltage up, a lot of capacity rather, up at the higher voltage range. So it's probably gonna run faster, but when it dies, it really dies. And the low voltage shutoff on this boat is really low, and it just ran the Liperior too low. So that's really unfortunate, but I know for next time, never run it past when it starts beeping, or probably don't even want to push it that far. At any rate, we'll see what happens here, and I'm starting this off at 1 minute 30 seconds. All right, the low voltage beep just started, and it's about 7 minutes 15 seconds in today that beep started. So about 30 seconds sooner than with the Liperior battery. However, it looks like it might run longer. It's going certainly slower from what I can tell. I'll do some speed testing tomorrow. I'll do it with it fully charged, and I'm gonna do it after, say, 6 minutes of runtime, so we can see which battery deteriorates more. Maybe they're pretty similar from the start, and at the end, I expect the Liperior to be faster. Hopefully I didn't damage the cells by running it down, but I'll take a look on my voltmeter when I'm done this run. It may have recovered a little bit and not be real low like it was at the end of the run. We'll see. And that's it at 8:38. And it looks like I have enough juice with this battery to run it back to the shore. All right, I'll go ahead and check the voltage of this and the Liperior. One thing I didn't mention was this boat doesn't have a whole lot of demand on the batteries. It's only drawing about 6 amps. And my understanding about lithium-ion batteries is they can work pretty well in low demand devices, but if you got a higher demand device, they tend not to have as high of a C rating and might underperform. But in this boat, they seem to work really well. I gotta get this thing off 1 second. The lithium-ion battery is definitely warmer, and we're down at 6.72, 3.32, and 3.40. I was expecting the same thing with the LIPO battery, and that's why it caught me off guard that it was completely dead. Now this Haiboxing Surge X03 has a really nice remote, and it does tell you the charge that's left in the battery as you're going. The boat's off, so it's not going to show us, but you know, I just have to be more careful next time and actually watch that and not run it all the way down when I'm running the LIPO battery in here. And as I was mentioning earlier, this boat draws about 6 amps, and it draws about 100 milliamp hours per minute. So it draws down an 800 milliamp hour battery in about 8 or maybe closer to 9 minutes today. So maybe a little over 90 milliamp hours per minute is what it was drawing today with the smoother water. But this battery is quite warm, whereas the Liperior was not. So tomorrow I'll get back out here and I'll do some speed tests. I was thinking I wasn't gonna run the second battery today, but might as well. It's charged up and we'll see how long it runs compared to the first one. I want to say that first one was about 8 minutes and, was it 40 seconds, 39 seconds? Somewhere right around there. I'm gonna wait until this counter gets to 30 seconds on the video camera so I have a good starting point and go. 30 seconds is now. All right, we just started beeping at about 7 minutes, 10 seconds into the run, and we'll see how much longer it goes. All right, that's it, 8 minutes, 27 seconds. So we ran a little shorter that run, but within 10 or 15 seconds of the previous run. And both of them ran longer than the Liperior LIPO battery. So again, we'll do some speed testing tomorrow, but it looks like for runtime, the Li-ion's superior. Now, as far as the second Li-ion battery I ran, it ran, I don't know, it's like 12 or 13 seconds less than the first one, but the voltage might not be quite as low. All right, this one, 3.33, 3.39, and the total voltage is 6.72. I can't remember what the other one was, but I think it was in that ballpark. All right, that's it for now. Speed testing tomorrow. Okay, I got the Liperior back on my charger here, and let's see how it does. I don't think I'm gonna have to set it to nickel metal hydride. It looks like it's recovered enough. It's well above 6 volts now, and should be in good shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this up to storage voltage, and I think it avoided any serious damage. I might go ahead and just release this video as is and do the speed test part in a separate video, because the results aren't quite what I expected, and I'll probably break things apart a little differently because of that. When I made this video, I wanted to answer 2 questions. I wanted to answer A, were Liperior LIPOs any good? And this is only one of the 4 LIPOs I'll be testing, and it's their more budget-oriented LIPO. But I also wanted to look at, was a LIPO a worthwhile investment to increase the performance on the Haiboxing Surge X03? So there's 2 questions in mind. One thing I just want to highlight that I didn't appreciate as much as I do now, and that is Li-ion batteries are not necessarily completely inferior to LIPOs. It depends on the application. Li-ion batteries actually hold a lot of capacity for the weight and the price of the batteries. Now, LIPOs will almost always perform better, at least a high quality LIPO, and provide way more punch and have a much higher C rating. But that's not to say Li-ions are inherently bad. So, as you can see here, we have the 2 Haiboxing Li-ion batteries that came with the boat. And then we had the Liperior LIPO, which I have here that I tested out. The Li-ion batteries were rated 800 milliamp hours and the Liperior at 850. The actual measured capacity after several charges through my charger, these are, averages, but the Li-ion battery was around 800 milliamp hours. One was a little under, one was a little above, but in that ballpark, from 3.4 volts per cell to 4.2 volts. Now, the Liperior battery was right around its rated 850 milliamp hours. Now, the capacity from 3.4 volts up to storage voltage of 3.75 volts, as you can see, the stock Li-ion battery had much less capacity from storage voltage to a full charge than the Liperior battery did. And the difference is much more pronounced when you look at 3.7 volts up to 4.2 volts. The Liperior had 88% of its total charge in that higher voltage range, whereas the Li-ion batteries only had about half of that. Folks that have followed my channel and have seen my testing will remember this spreadsheet from my 3S testing. And as you can see, the lower performance, lower quality LIPOs were around the same percentage of voltage from 3.7 volts to full charge as the Li-ion batteries. So, around 40-45% here, whereas the higher end LiPo batteries that were mostly comprised or completely comprised of LCO had about 88% of their total capacity from 3.7 volts to 4.2 volts. So looking at this, the Liperior actually performed really well. However, the performance wasn't really noticeable in the boat. And there's a few reasons for this. I think the primary reason is the boat is only discharging at about 6 amps. Now, if I had run it in a higher demand RC vehicle, the difference in the two batteries would have been much more pronounced. But for this testing here, the run times were actually shorter with the Liperior 850 milliamp hour battery than the Li-ion batteries. The Li-ions were over 8 minutes, averaging around 8 minutes 30 seconds, whereas the Liperior was about 7:47, and I only ran it once because it really dumped at the end, and the low voltage shutoff in the boat is set really low, and I didn't want to run it below 3 volts per cell like I did the first time I ran it. So you have to be really careful in the case of this Surge X03 boat when running a LiPo, because again, the ESC will shut it off too late. Now, the low voltage alarm actually triggered earlier on the two Li-ion batteries, whereas much later on the LiPo batteries. And this is because the voltage dropped more quickly in the Li-ion batteries, but once the LiPo battery got down low, it just drops off very quickly. Again, most of the charge is up in the higher voltage range of the battery, which is what you want for high performance applications. This boat not really being one of those. I think when Haiboxing chose a battery for this boat, they kept in mind, of course, the very budget-friendly nature of the boat, and the Li-ion batteries were a good choice. They knew what they were doing. Was there increased performance with the LiPo? There was. It's not real noticeable. The boat went about a mile an hour to maybe 1.5 miles an hour faster with the LiPo battery when it was fully charged. And after 5 minutes and 40 seconds, when I retested it, it was still a little faster. But by 5 minutes and 40 seconds in, after 5 minutes and 40 seconds, the voltage in the LiPo was at about, it was below 3.7 volts per cell. And if we remember back on this column here, 88% of the capacity is above 3.7 volts per cell. So by the time I did the second speed test, it was already out of the meat of its power curve, and I should have maybe done this around 3 or 4 minutes in. But I spent an inordinate amount of time on this test, and I'm not going back. Because I think, we have enough data here to make some conclusions on LiPo versus Li-ion in this boat. Now, after charging, all the batteries were pretty close to 4.2 volts. The Li-ion seemed to fall back a little bit more than the LiPos, but I really don't think that's a shock. Now you can see here the LiPo ran down to 5.75 volts after the first time I ran it. So under 3 volts per cell, which was not good. Although after sitting for a few minutes, it recovered and went back up to above 3 volts per cell, and it seems to be running okay. But that was not ideal. The Li-ions ran down to about 3.35 volts per cell, 3.4 volts per cell, somewhere in that general area. Now, after the 5 minute 40 second run, the Liperior had a higher voltage, which is why it was still faster than the Li-ion batteries, because it was able to make the motor spin faster with that higher voltage. but I think the difference would have been more pronounced, you know, between the first 1 and 5 minutes than it was here. So definitely there was a performance gain. And when you look at the percentage in the difference, it doesn't seem like much difference with 1 mile an hour, but if this was an RC car going, say, 50 miles an hour, that difference may have been 4 or even 5 miles an hour. So, and again, with a higher demand ESC, or with a higher demand power system, that difference would be even more noticeable because the Li-ion would have more voltage drop. The Li-ion batteries did get quite warm after running it, even in the Surge X03, whereas the LiPo was much cooler and much happier. The internal resistance of the Li-ion batteries are much higher as well, so that's usually an indication that a battery is not going to perform as well, and it did and it didn't. I mean, it had longer run times, and maybe that's what somebody wants in a budget-friendly boat like this. Really, nobody in their right mind would spend this much time tinkering with a budget-friendly boat to begin with, but I'm not really in my right mind, apparently. Now, the weight of the different batteries, they are very close. The LiPo was about a gram heavier, so really insignificant. And again, the top speed, the LiPo was faster, but it had that shorter run time. And you have to be really careful running it down to the low voltage cutoff. The nice thing about the Surge X03 is that the transmitter has a reading as far as the percentage of charge left in the battery. So using that, you could be pretty safe, but you still have to be careful for sure. So the original question was, is it worthwhile to buy LiPos for your Surge X03? And I would say, as this battery was very inexpensive, yeah, it was worthwhile. Although, I think either way would be fine. I don't think one type of battery is really that much better than the other. I will say, however, I think a lower performance LiPo battery in this Surge boat would have probably performed worse than the Li-ion batteries. Although most of the testing I've done, the cheaper LiPos have a lot of capacity compared to their actual rated capacity. It's just that the capacity is down in that lower voltage range. So maybe it would have performed more similar to a LiPo. I guess I'm talking in circles now, but the take-home message I would say is that the Liperior batteries, this first one I tested, actually performed really well, on par with the best LiPos I've tested before, as far as the percentage of capacity that's above 3.7 volts. And in an RC vehicle like my Arrma Big Rock, that's exactly what you want. You want that power up high, you're gonna have less voltage sag, you're gonna have higher speeds and longer run times, because when it gets down to 3.5, 3.4, 3.3 volts per cell, it's simply not accessible. So if the capacity is down in that range, it might as well not be there at all because you can't access it. This boat is a completely different story. All right, that's all I have for now. These Li-ion batteries actually perform better than I expected. That's not to say that LiPo battery performed poorly, it just did not perform as expected in the Haiboxing boat because it's not a high demand device. It's a brushed, low demand, 6 amp device, and it could not showcase the performance difference that you could get with a good battery like this Liperior versus the Li-ion batteries. Now moving forward, a big thank you to rcbattery.com for sending me 4 of their Liperior batteries. I have the 850 milliamp hour 2S battery here I already tested, but next I'm moving on to these 3 here. I have a 5000 and a 5500 milliamp hour Liperior Pro battery I'm going to test. I'm going to run these through all the same tests that I ran these other batteries through. We're going to see where they stack up. These 4 batteries here are my lower performance batteries. Again, they don't have a whole lot of capacity above 3.7 volts per cell, and their top speed in general was lower than the Sypom and the SMC. So far, the SMC is my best performing battery. However, the Sypom was the best bang for the buck battery. So we'll see how these Liperior batteries perform. I'm only going to test them against, I'm probably going to start off testing them against the Sypom, and we'll kind of gauge where they're at. And if they do really well, great, I'll put them up against the SMC. If they don't, you know, we'll see where they're at. It's just very time consuming to do speed testing, do the high grass load test and all that with, you know, 4, 5, 6 batteries. Certainly doing like 8 batteries or more, what I have here, 9 batteries. It's a big ask. So I'm gonna test these 3 against the Sypom and then take it from there. And I'm really curious to see how they perform. I have these first 2 again are the Pro line, and the bottom one is the Endurance series. And it's not real clear to me what the performance difference is in these batteries, but we'll test them out and see. All 3 of these though are higher priced batteries, everything else being equal, than the yellow cased batteries like this one here. And this one had the capacity distribution that I expect in these higher performance batteries. So I have high hopes for these, and folks were saying online these are great batteries for their price, but there's only one way to find out. So look for my next video and we'll see how they perform. Take care, guys. Thanks.